Almost.
Yep.
I'll call the meeting to order. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Okay, I have a motion from Bob for accepting the minutes and second from Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Ball's in your court.
You made it.
Bye, Bob. Thanks for your service.
I got on the agenda, that's all here. The white pepper is here. I never.
I just wanted to tell you about our upcoming federal aid projects. When the AGFTC meets in December, hopefully the tip will be approved, and you already know that Lock 8 Way is on that, but Gray Lane is also on that. So he can't jump for joy. We have a Church Street supplemental that adds $26,790 to construction inspection funds. I sent the resolution to Roger, and I sent the Schedule A, the March salary, and I sent the Schedule A to Al.
Can I have a motion to send it to finance? Got a motion and second.
The supplemental one?
Yes.
On the back of your agenda.
Oh.
There'll be a budget amendment too.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, okay. Did you have a question, Dan, or were you?
Well, I had a question back on the upcoming projects, the Lock 8 Gateway and the Gray Lane.
Yep.
For some reason or other, I missed that one meeting where there was discussion on it, and now I don't really know what it's all about. Can you flesh that out a little bit, what that is?
The project,
Yeah, what the projects are?
the tip projects.
I don't know what it says, upcoming projects, Lock 8.
So there's a tip, and it's through the AGFTC with Aaron.
And what is TIP?
TIP stands for Transportation Infrastructure Project.
The two Marcelli funds. Which are,
Oh, okay.
Yep, so the projects that are coming up for that are the Lock 8 Way and Gray Lane that start this year. It's a 5-year, 4 or 5 year, 5-year tip. So our Shushan Bridge was on that, our Church Street Bridge was on that, those types of projects. County Route 3536 pavement preservation, which we did last year, was on that. Oh, I didn't silence my phone.
Good. First time. Nobody wants me anyway.
I just,
That was just. a
I've been on
test,
silent
just
for
like
how
that.
long?
Okay, well, Lock 8 way, is that the road into the old dewatering site?
Yep.
Now, who owns that road? No, I mean, I'm just trying to catch up here.
You're really.
I
jumping
didn't,
off.
I well, no, I just want a summary now, the
I don't.
IDA owns the bridge right now?
He owns the bridge and the road, yes.
Oh, and the road. Okay. And
It's only been 5 years.
if the IDA owns it and the Marcelli project, now we can, how do we do that if we don't own the road?
you passed a resolution to be the lead agency of the Marcelli funds.
I'm wondering if I was here for that. I missed it.
Well, several meetings.
Yeah, it was a few meetings that we had to go
Okay.
hash that out.
Yeah, well, I missed one, I know that, but I don't know. Okay,
And just because we're the lead agent, we have been assured that we don't own the bridge, we won't own the bridge, we don't own the road, we won't own the road. It's just a way to make it happen. And if you have a discussion about part of the value, the county is going to get the old Bailey Bridge. For
oh, yes, I do remember that
that's what
discussion.
this is about.
Yeah.
And where is Gray Lane?
That is in Whitehall.
Whitehall, okay.
It's a road to nowhere in Whitehall.
But they need a bridge.
You got one of those up there in your town too,
This
don't
this
you?
is even worse. This one goes down and serves, what, 2 houses?
This
Our
is supposedly
responsibility.
where the Bailey Bridge will ultimately go.
No, the Bailey Bridge is, the Gray Lane's gonna get their own bridge, from Marshall Lanes.
What's the road up a Whitehall that was?
That was Gray Lane.
That was Great Lane, but because we had to put it on the tip, because it got the load rating got lowered again. So we needed to get it on the tip. We couldn't wait to see if everything flushed out for that.
And this is the first time we're hearing that.
I don't think so.
You hear it all every single day, but what about the committee?
So I thought it
You
was-
know me, I didn't know any of it.
When we did this, we talked about, my memory is when we did this, original was take the Bailey Bridge and put it up at Gray Lane.
That was the original.
There is a pressing need to get Gray Lane a new bridge. So we couldn't wait for the construction of Lockgate Way to trickle down to get to Gray Lane, so she wants Bailey Bridge for other places. The Gray Lane's going to go on the tip instead and get funded.
Yeah.
So is this the first that this DPW committee is hearing this?
I think the last time we discussed it, I think it was put out there that you said the bridge had gotten so bad that
Because the load rating was. went
Okay, so
down
when we get
again.
the Bailey Bridge, it's just gonna be going to a stock somewhere, just in case
Yes.
someday.
Wouldn't you?
Crossways, but
well, would-
No,
I got some places up there.
Thank you.
if you spend enough money.
So you're good with that?
I needed that.
Spend enough money.
All right.
To stretch it.
Okay,
So what?
we got through the Church Street supplemental and all that.
The snow and ice contract with DOT, I was hoping we would have it by now, because we should have had it by now, but we still don't. have it. So there's nothing to say.
Now, that's one with Warren County that needed to be reviewed, that
No,
Was it-
that's a separate one. The one with the state is where we plow a bunch of state roads. We have an agreement with the state. I think it's a 5-year agreement, but there's 3 years that they average, and I think we get paid 2/3 of that, whether it snows or not. But I'll hopefully have it for next week.
is that basically same rates that Warren County proposed, or are they similar in rates
Nope, what we get paid is time and materials
for Warren? County?
for the state.
Oh, for the state.
It's per mile for Warren County, and it's time and materials for the state.
But now the Warren County one, didn't we have a problem with that, or it seemed like there was discussion on that? And
That was,
something had to be, Roger, you were gonna look into something, weren't you, on that one with Warren County?
You asked if Debbie was sure we were getting paid enough money to
Right.
cover it, and she said yes, more than enough, and then she didn't want to discuss what they paid for the towns. There's more than
Well,
enough.
no, it was something to do with the dates, when it expired and it didn't
We
expire.
had an annual renewal.
Year, it was longer.
well,
I thought it was sand versus salt.
Yeah. A lot of thoughts
I
here
don't
now.
see them.
I thought about
but
saying,
we had.
then we know it's not.
I don't see
Good thing I was that late.
Well, I was gonna tell them how much. That's what I usually.
See, then there was something about had to be engineered. We all choked on something that passable and took no action until there was more discussion. And so I'm wondering where we're at. on it.
So what was the question then about the Warren County snow and ice?
My question was, where are we at with it? Because there was something, the way it was written, that people had an issue. And I was just wondering where.
That was the 5-year agreement. I don't have any.
I think the issue was about sand,
I've seen down there.
which everyone ignores.
Well,
But
that
it
and the
doesn't say
renewal.
that They're gonna put sand down. It says it was a contract that covers all the towns. Warren County has a lot of towns that plow for them. And it covers the whole gamut of towns and the county. And that's why it has the sand.
I don't have an issue with it either.
Well, that's the first time I've ever heard of that, so I guess I'll stop annually complaining about it, because that kind of makes a little bit more sense.
But I thought
Just
just
put
put
it in
something
there.
that we didn't approve because it wasn't written properly.
We did it last.
So somewhere along the line, we got to approve it. We-
You just approved it on Monday.
Yeah.
we did.
We did.
Yeah.
This is the pilot now.
You voted yes.
Mhm.
Pilot now.
guess not everything is that first board meeting, so you're safe for that. Oh, no, I think I abstained yours. You had the resolution there.
No, that's okay.
We all set on that?
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are we all set on the-
I'm slow picking up here on stuff.
What happens if it snows next week
with plow?
with the state? Plow it, or you gonna-
We'll plow still. We did, what, last week or the week before?
Right.
The state has had so much turnover that they're having a hard time wrapping. DC is the same way. There's just so much turnover.
You'll hear that theme
Yeah.
for a while in different committees.
Well, we have 15 new guys driving plows this year. That doesn't mean they're all new at driving plows, but they're new to us.
Stealing from
Yeah.
He's gonna be out with a shovel. right?
What happened?
Y'all came with a shovel, 'cause-
What happened when you get a $2 an hour raise to people?
There's 3 signs on there.
They're coming our way to do it.
Come work for DOT plowing snow.
They're all the way out 88. We go all the way out there back at the thing is that all the flashing signs, that's all they say.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move the carpool? We can have
Yes.
another 20-minute discussion.
We're ready. I moved number 5. He started.
No, you can't be on.
Oh, I got before. Okay.
So we went out to bid on a Ford Explorer, and we did that back in January. I think it was in January, it was early in the year. And we were just notified that Ford canceled tens of thousands of orders, and they canceled our order. So we were advised to go to the second bidder, which is also Ford, so they were in the same situation. So we're looking into some state contracts and seeing if there's anything out there. Hopefully there is. Oh, I just wanted to let you know about that.
I like Priuses.
Who was that Explorer for?
Get her a Prius.
I'm gonna give you this.
They're fast, I'll tell you, they are fast.
Okay,
Ready to move on to, all right, carpool.
So when we changed the carpool from 35 and 45 cents to 50 and 60 cents, we forgot to change the minimum full day and half day charges from $7 and $9 to $9 and 12. Well, we think it should be $9 and $12.
second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't have any reviews. Does anybody else?
I do.
Oh. fabulous.
So unfortunately, Carolina Road is out of money. And
I did not spend too much, just so you know.
no, it really, this happened the same time last year. We passed a resolution for an interfund loan. It depends really on when they release the CHIPS money for the county. We get about $2.5 million in November in CHIPS reimbursement. So depending on when that comes in, we always run right around this time of year, we run tight. About the 1st of November, I start biting my nails, and as of this morning, I don't have money for payroll. So what I need is for, what I'm asking and slash need, is for the committee to approve an interfund loan from general fund to county road until such time as the CHIPS money comes in. Could be tomorrow, it could be December 31st, I don't know. There'll have to be a formal resolution at the board meeting, but I really need to do it like yesterday.
Does it go to finance, or is it just this committee straight up?
The interfund loan, I don't think has to go to finance, doesn't it?
It might not, I know.
It's not a budget.
Second, how much?
Yeah, I was gonna, before we,
I would say not to exceed the CHIPS reimbursement, but I'm only looking for $1 million right now, which I think will get me, it might get me through the year. I'm not sure.
So that's covered payroll.
An audit. We wrote some big paving checks on Monday as well.
You notice how easy you said that, only $1 million.
Well, it's out of 2.5, so, you know.
or up to 2.5, right?
Dana?
Not to exceed.
You always hear that once general gives money to highway, you cannot get it back, but you are gonna loan it. That's
The board
a
can
way of
authorize an
getting it
interfund
back.
loan, correct. That has to be paid, correct. And when it's between funds, it's interest free. The only one that's paid interest is sewer.
And at the county level, we can take it back. At the town level, we can't.
But on that, you can still loan it on town level.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the county level, you can actually take it back.
Oh, without a loan, you can get it back?
Yeah, through resolution, there's a way.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on it? All in favor, aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Okay. Is there any other?
Not for me, except.
My favorite, yeah, Church Street, right? Yeah, can you pull it up on the screen? So the Church Street Bridge is almost done, right? That they were painting the line yesterday. The county owns three parcels along the bridge. And they use them for the construction. Dad wants to keep the parcels that abut the bridge. You know, it makes sense because if they ever need to do any work on that, if you'd like to know how we acquired the parcels, Roger can give you a half-an-hour dissertation on how we got them, but the fact that we own them. And so we have a proposal on what to do with the properties. Let's get pull that up.
I'm trying to get access to do that.
Okay.
It's taking a second.
So if you look at it, it's it's the parcels on either side of the bridge, where it says Church Street. So there's two parcels on the left, which are, I don't know, about 150 by 90, give or take. But that building that's on there is gone now because that's what they tore down the bridge. The 150 by 90 is not a big enough parcel in the village due to zoning to do anything with. You can't build on it. You can even put a garage on it. But I'd like to keep those because at some point in the future, she may need to access the bridge and like to keep those parcels. On the right side of the road, there is a parcel with a house on it. And it's basically a paved parking area and then a house next to it.
What name? Parcel, there's 15 parcels.
The one that says
What- what-
41
what-
Church Street,
what-
Washington County.
This is the one.
I know the one say Washington County, but what?
117.14-9-2.
These are the two that we
I
want to
know
know
that.
that. What
What
is
is he talking about? The other one?
Across the street. Across the street.
The big one, right?
Yeah, across the street. Right here. Okay, and this has got a house on it.
Right.
And but there's a parking lot and a paved parking area that Deb would like to access in case she ever needs to get to the bridge. So we either keep it, and then Deb will always have access, and then we need to maintain that house forever. Or we sell it, but then she wouldn't have the parking lot to get access to the bridge.
Why does the county have to maintain that house forever? Why can't we tear it down?
You can tear it down, but you're gonna pay for it. Why put any expense into it? My suggestion is subdivide that right at the spot between the parking area and the house. Deb can keep the parking area to access the bridge. We sell the house. It's not a great house. It's a small house. It's a small lot. It's got some value.
It's on the river. Why don't we do an Airbnb?
Where's Jim?
Know anybody that can redeem that? All I'm trying to say is, if you get something for it, you're on the plus side as opposed to tearing it down, which is.
So you're not looking for the town or the village to take it, you're looking to get it back into the public hands.
The house,
Right.
right. I just do give them the whole thing, but then it screws Deb on the access
Well,
to some degree.
That's in the village, though, right?
It's in the village.
So what have they done for zoning regs to do it?
You have to go to the planning board and you have to subdivide it.
How much of
You
it
got-
do they need to take?
You got your map up there right now.
Okay,
Well,
all right. Right. So that comes out pretty well, didn't it? So the house is right here. This is the line right here between the parking area and the house. And that drops off there to the house, right, Deb? I'm gonna say it drops off 10 feet. So there's a natural spot where you could subdivide that right off. Then she would have all this in case you needed the bridge. You would have this and you would have this. And then you could subdivide this off and sell this house. It's a small house. This is a construction trailer that's gone now. So I think Laura's gone before the planning board before. She could go ask for a subdivision, get that subdivided off, put up to Hawkins International and sell it.
Is it gonna be enough to go by the village rules?
We believe so, yes. So this is gonna take a lot of steps. And I'm just trying to get it started here. And if the idea is, no, screw it, we want to keep it, or we want to do this, or we want to get, let's just get it figured out now so we can get the process going.
Do we need number 1 Water Street? Do we need that also?
Yes.
Why? For access. You got 34 Church Street.
This is to this side of the bridge. You want to keep these, right? Deb?
If we keep that, we never have to buy it or get
You
access
never have
in
to
the
come back
future.
and use that other word you hate so much, Mr.
Didn't you say?
There'll be no eminent domain to work on the bridge.
Can't build anything.
No, these are too small to build on. These are, like I said, this is only like less than 100 feet across here. So you could get rid of these, but I don't know why you would want to and what you'd get for them.
I would like to keep them, but.
The number 1 Water Street is not at the abutment. It's back a little bit. Couldn't you keep
It is.
34 Church Street and be good enough? And subdivide 41 Church Street?
That's what I'm talking about doing, subdividing this. If you sold this,
It's not a buildable lot.
Right.
But
virtually
they have
worthless.
village water and sewer. Buildable lot can be.
No, zoning, it's too small a lot to put any structure on.
From where you can.
So it's only got a value to her. So my suggestion is to subdivide this, sell this house, and she can keep these parcels.
Perfect.
I don't have a
No,
problem with
that's why step 1. Number 2,
Oh, step 1's perfect. Let's see what number 2 is.
the village would like to get, if Roger can write up a 1-page access, to be able to put a pathway down through here, down to the river for fishing, for swimming, for putting in a kayak. And they would put the path in, they would maintain it. The only upside to that for the county is there's a property maintenance law in the village of Granville. And if you didn't do that, you'd have to send somebody over the mower every week to mow that.
Oh, that was.
And I can tell you in 2020, I mowed it because nobody could, it was a pain in the neck. So the agreement would be the village would get right away to put a path down here for access. They would indemnify and hold
Where they
harmless,
park.
et
They
cetera,
would have to maintain.
over here.
The kayakers would park over there.
And they would maintain it and then they would mow it and they would take care of it. So the county wouldn't have any issue with it. Then they could, so then subdivide this, sell this house. I'm just throwing this out there to say,
That's perfect.
to move
We're good.
forward.
Do we have a number 3?
So we're
You
gonna-
had us all wound up
Good
for
ideas.
another one.
Dan's got a question.
Yeah, what, now, I could be looking at this wrong, Dan, but wouldn't it be even smarter? I like what you're saying. Turn both of those over to the village, you get look to them. With an easement that says we have a right to use that to repair, maintain, or whatever for for building or working on the bridge.
I defer,
And then you don't go, you have way less language.
I defer to the attorney on which
Right.
way you want to go on that.
Do you want to own it or not?
Why do we want to own it as long as we got a right of way to maintain the bridge?
You still want to subdivide this and sell this though, don't you?
Yes.
Well, but now tell me, you keep drawing a line that way. Why don't you draw a line at a angle like a 45?
This is one elevation right here with a paved parking lot.
Yes,
This then falls off at this line down about 10 feet to this house.
right, but what if, still, what, would it
Keeping the parking.
not be advantageous? Would it not improve the value of that lot if you put the line at a 45 and give them some high ground? Yeah, right there, something like that.
You're cutting through a parking lot. though, right?
Then to get to this part over here, they would have to go through this over here.
Who would have to go there?
Whoever owns this house.
But let them do whatever they want to do. I'm just saying, would it increase the value of the home if there was more land there?
If I was shopping, no.
No, it's just so natural because it just falls off right
Where you
here.
gonna move that? Like,
Then on top of that, you're gonna get middle of summer, it's gonna be packed with kayakers and fishermen. They're gonna be parking on that person's property and you're gonna have a headache there.
Well, who's gonna maintain it now? Then
The village will maintain this, and the village will plow this and maintain it, and the village will mow this and maintain it,
Oh, this both sides?
both sides. and
Oh, okay.
Whatever agreement
I thought
Roger
that we
puts
were
together
gonna
to
do
do what they want to do.
Matt, is this looks like a bit of a cliff face. Is that too steep? to
No.
Access?
No, this is the only good spot. This is actually steeper. There's a natural pathway down there because they put it in when they did the bridge. It actually comes down in a nice gradual, and there's a bunch of stone right here,
I
and
think
there's an
this is
opening.
great, but for people that like a little excitement, can we get a pathway up here?
They've got one farther.
No, the river goes this way. You want to get excitement, and go through the rapids here. If I put your kayak in here and go down through those.
You're all set now, man.
Better.
And of course, it's good for the village because they own all this and they own, all that over there, and it kind of ties in their whole campus.
Let's
But
do it.
Great.
We're all set.
so I can then go to Laura to have her subdivide. Roger, you could work on some kind of
Yeah,
agreement.
you have to survey it. So what I would say, we should hang on to that property, because if you take it and do what you're talking about doing with it, the P word is gonna come up. And the P word in this case is park. And then if we want to realign that road or anything, it's gonna literally take an act of the legislature to do it.
So let the county keep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So
Because they would go to.
I would
do an
say-
agreement.
I would say, I like the idea of just divesting it, but then we could only maintain the current bridge. We couldn't move anything, we
Right.
couldn't realign, we couldn't do anything. And I know that if we start putting lovely paths and bushes in there, somebody would say, oh, look, it's a park.
And just to let you know, for 2021, before the bridge started, the village did mow and maintain this in the event that you might consider this as a good roof gesture.
By the time we're done, you'll be responsible for anybody who even gets struck by lightning.
Exactly.
What about the subdivision? Can we do that, Roger?
And that's up to the planning board of the town. We're gonna have to survey what we want to subdivide. You're gonna have to then take your maps to the
Yep.
to the town or the village planning board, and then all bets are off. I mean, some planning boards are whatever, and some planning boards take years to make things
Well,
like
yeah, the
this.
village planning board will have to decide if they want to do this so that they can have access to these things. So I'm thinking.
I think.
There might be-
Might be a little something there.
The first thing to do is to survey, it, so you know what.
Call the governor. Way to go.
Two things I would throw out to the committee for their consideration. If we're gonna keep those two properties, it might be beneficial to do a partial combination and make them one. Number one, and number two, I have a budget for expenses on county-owned properties. I would recommend tapping that for the cost of the survey.
Oh, I see. You take this piece and this piece and this piece and make them one.
No, take those two.
Or these two make them
And
one.
make them a parcel.
Because it-
Just, it's a lot cleaner, especially if we're gonna continue ownership of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then over here, I have in my budget money that could pay for the survey to start that process. We don't have
Your
to find-
resolutions ready,
we don't have to find money in the
up?
budget.
Why don't you just authorize the survey at this point in time?
Just
That's the first step.
And Laura had to go to the planning to start the process with the planning board.
Yeah, I wanted to make
Because if they say
what our
no, then this is
resolution
all
would
okay.
be, what the steps were, so just for a survey is what we need a motion for.
I'll make them.
Second.
Yeah, second. Any more discussion on that? All in favor, aye?
Okay.
Opposed? Okay.
So along the same lines as the conversation with the two lots on the left, parking lot on the right side, same agreement with the village
Yeah.
to allow parking and they would maintain it.
They'd plow it and they'd maintain it and
I
they'd keep
guess
the guardrails up.
So worried about it. If they're gonna allow access for folks in this public space, they can do that and maintain it. I guess it's how that is.
Actually, that's where the kayakers have been accessing it anyway for several years.
So they actually been going over there. But yeah.
There is a crosswalk. Yep, and it's handicap accessible, right up to federal standards. And I say that because the contractor didn't do it right. We made him go back.
Exactly.
Because we won't get reimbursed for that money if they don't do it the way the contract says. So it is all up to snuff now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other action?
Good presentation.
By the time we get the survey,
We'll get the other stuff.
we'll worry about the other stuff.
Yeah, this will take a few months.
Not like this whistle survey. That's if the planning board's really on.
I'll see what I can do.
Now there's holidays and all that. other
Is that it?
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask. Is there anything else for this committee?
have to stay.
There's a great spot in that ramp to make a vertical pin.
Thank you, we're adjourned.
You're thinking about zip line.
Sliding hill.
Yeah, you walk the speed.
I don't know if I'm.
Well, stupid mistake because it was outdoor, it got hung up and I missed only one. I think.
They charge you for that.
No, I don't even know if they don't.
Where do you send the bill? Where do you send the bill?
There should be a security tax.
Ready?
which I think I should have.
Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Washington County Public Safety Committee.
So,
Motion to accept the minutes for November 3rd. Second. Thank you, Sue. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Department reports, EMS. Yes, sir. So I guess we have a recommendation to reappoint for Greenwich Fire, Al Lambert. I don't know either one of these gentlemen. For Fort Ann Rescue Squad, Robert Porter. So we need a motion for that.
move
Second.
Second, thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Corners. Anyone up here?
it.
Oh, there you are. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. There is a funding opportunity from the medical examiners or coroner's office, supported by the CDC and the Public Health Network for some money. And it'll be a little bit different than the grant we did a couple years ago that the state pulled out on us. This is a one-time grant, goes from the January 1st to June 30th. It's, if we get the grant, we'd be able to buy things like the computers, laptops, scanners, a camera, and also a software that we currently do not have that I know we're looking at. The grant, we have to apply by December 6th, and I'm asking permission to apply for that grant.
Second. Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion, questions? Yes, sir.
We can get up to 20,000. I'm looking for what I think we need. We could probably apply for 7,000.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
And we have another one there, request resolution to increase transport rate.
Part two was just, it was within the budget request this year, which passed, was an increase in the transport rate to Glen Falls Hospital from 300 to 375. So there is an existing resolution 167 of 2019 that designated it at 300. So that resolution just needs to be updated by the board to make it 375, starting in January.
Motion to increase the transportation rate to 375. Motion, thank you, sir. Second. By Sue. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for that.
I was just thinking.
What's that?
Very comfortable.
I was just thinking about that. Falling asleep. I didn't want to.
Oh, I was gonna say, there's one behind me you can have.
It's a lead back thing.
Okay.
Phantom.
Public defender.
Right here.
Oh, there you are, sir.
Thank you for reminding me, Matt.
Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Morning. The first item is that Indigent Legal Services has issued 2 new reports on the Hurrell Herring lawsuit. The reports are on the in the public defender folder on the P drive if anyone wants to review the reports. I believe the reports are positive and show that progress is being made through the Hurrell Herring funding. Okay, I can email the reports or I can put them in another location. But I don't.
Get access to P drive later under county.
I don't even know what a P drive is.
Yeah, well, we could put them on the website. Are they public?
They're on the ILS website. Yeah, I can make sure they're available to the entire committee.
You have access to the ILS website?
Yep, they're on the ILS website. They are they're positive and they review each county separately. The review of Washington County is positive.
Positive in what regard, Mike? Would Tony say that it's a positive review of what's going on?
I think he would. I think he would, and I think they surveyed the magistrates, they surveyed the judges. And I believe, I don't want to be quoted exactly, but something to the effect from a long-time serving county court judge that public defense is definitely improved.
But there's obligations under the settlement. What this report says is we met our obligations on the settlement.
The next item is that I regret to inform you, we were not awarded the ILS Family Court Grant. I requested to apply for that a few months back. There was a discussion about ramifications of such a grant, and that's where this would segue into a new issue, which is that there is a new court rule as far as representation with respect to family court and representation pre-petition. So I know that we've had discussions about this before. We were not awarded the grant, but we are under a new rule that requires us to represent family court applicants prior to court proceedings, which could include these Article 10 proceedings and pre-investigation stages. other budget implications? I would say so, but
The question is,
not till 2024 in my own view.
so the grant goes, current grant goes how long?
End of 2023.
The Harrell Herring lawsuit is set to expire at the end of 2023.
So the grant application would be for a period of time after that.
This grant that I'm discussing as far as the family court grant was a separate grant. And it was a non-Harrell Herring grant.
And what did we fund with that grant?
We were never awarded the grant. It was a request to fund investigations that, but ILS awarded that particular grant to several other counties across the state. The last item I have is just to update you that the office space, which is being funded through the Harrell Herring caseload grant, is moving along, and we expect to be moving into new office space in the new year.
With new furniture, chairs.
I believe so. But all funded through the caseload, Harrell Herring caseload.
Yes, ma'am.
Mike, on the family court representation part, and that's starting right away for 2024.
Well, I think that we're under a rule to do it right
Starting
now.
right now.
Right.
And so,
But they haven't really explained, if people aren't aware of it, then they can't take, there is no access to it. I would say that the rule's out there, but it's really not been implemented yet in any manner that's impacting budget.
so it's not offered, it has to be requested.
Right. That's exactly it. But it could ultimately have budget implications. The last thing too would be that, and this is not on the agenda, but there is a lot of discussion of site council rates increasing and at a rate that would double it, basically from $75 to $150 per hour. And that certainly, it's anticipated that could happen sometime in the middle of 2023. And it would seem that would potentially double the assigned council expenses from whatever time that took effect.
So question is, assigned council, they're doubling the rate.
That's what's being proposed, right?
And should we do an analysis? Should it be less expensive to have a full-time person or pay $150 a rate? Should we do that analysis? I think we did the analysis someplace else. We found out it was cheaper to hire people. Council, I don't think it was yours. I think it was someplace else.
You can't hire people now?
We're gonna get them for $150.
Well, they're already lawyers. They
reimbursable.
Presently, under the ILS contracts, that it is reimbursable. With respect to the ILS contracts, they run through 2023.
Some of it.
Right, increased expenses.
Your own flow cases and stuff like that. But there's other ATV attorneys won't fees.
Right.
Right.
But, yes,
This is a council, so this is an attorney.
assigned counsel, not
$75 municipal rate is only like a paralegal. So we've been paying attorneys a paralegal rate.
That's the set rate by the state. That's the rates you pay the real world.
Well, in municipalities, we don't pay the real world legal rate anyway. But in municipalities, 75 is the price for a paralegal.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not your outside counsel rate. So like when you hire somebody to defend us outside, that's the assigned counsel rate for public defenders in the ATV. That's it. That's what that rate is.
including New York City, that's what the attorneys even in New York City make, $75. And it is likely to double in sometime during 2023. And I would say probably take immediate effect whenever it happens.
So then the knock-on effect is that the,
Cost doubles.
well, what would
do we have a paralegal rate? That's even less than 75?
It's just for attorneys.
And that's just FYI, as far as potential. But presently, many of these costs are recoverable through the ILS contract. The final point is, again, all the ILS contracts run through 2023. There's 3 separate contracts. All the caseload and counsel at arraignment. Those are all going to, what we've been advised is that we will only have 1 contract beginning in 2024.
That's something that we found to be actually good news for a change. We weren't sure what was going to happen. So the settlement covers through December 31st, 2023. We were kind of unsure what the landscape would look like after that. The last meeting with ILS, like Mike just mentioned, what they're looking at is taking the 3 funding streams, making 1 master contract and continuing that in 24. So that was actually good news for a change. There is a post settlement process that they're looking for. It's actually going to be streamlined, and easier to run. Right.
Any idea if the amount will be the total of the 3 or half of the 3 or
The
double?
funding, we were told the funding is going to remain constant.
Which isn't good if they're gonna double the price for the assigned council.
We're underspending now, so we'll probably be okay on what it covers. It's the ones that it doesn't cover that you'll feel the.
So by having the 1 umbrella will make us able to use it all, you think? Would that be good?
And we're spending less than we've been budgeted.
The family court cases, the parole cases and stuff like that.
So they're easing up the parameters, so the money's still gonna be available as long as you're within the parameters.
Yes.
Well, we hope. I don't know that there are any guarantees.
Nobody can predict caseload, really. But they're also outside.
Did you mention that Burrell Herring settlement is gonna end in 2023?
Yes,
Now, we've been getting a steady stream of money from that.
yes.
So how much money is ending in 2023?
None. That's the discuss. They're going to roll it into 1 new contract with, we hope,
Okay.
equal funding.
And they're gonna stay the same. I thought there was gonna be a shortfall, but you're saying it's.
Well, there could be.
You don't know yet.
We aren't certain
Okay.
yet. but
Now I got the picture.
There's been a pretty good assurance that what we're being funded now is what will continue to be funded. However, we are spending less than what they've budgeted us with presently. And it could be that what we are provided is what we are spending, not what we were previously budgeted.
Right.
Because they might have, I think they conservatively over budgeted us so they could measure the spending without having a shortfall.
Yep.
But I think we're pretty confident we'll at least be budgeted with what we're presently spending. And hopefully with all of it that we are currently being budgeted. But
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
I made this comment before, but the ramifications of these new rules on him are more work. I feel like the DA, but I'm doing the same thing. More work on people like me. To require more staff time on my part that is not reimbursed by any of these grants. So you understand that coming in.
So the committee shouldn't tell Mike not to make a bigger burden.
You can do
Did
that,
you do
but
that, Mike?
he doesn't have.
you can tell me.
I
can't
That's fair.
He doesn't have a choice. When his reputation expands, somebody has to be on the other side of it. And in the past, it's been the DA that's been. Family court expands my responsibility on the other side.
Any other questions? Yes, Sue.
Like on the spending, and just, sounds like you spent less than what you received.
Correct.
And what they're going to look at in the future is what you spent, not what you received.
Possibly, unless that's likely. However, if we, as I've been trying to stay on top of through the whole evolution of the rail lawsuit, if we can more efficiently spend and reallocate in places where we could spend it, then all of what is presently being budgeted may be available. But if they're over budgeting and we're just sending money back, that may not continue to be available. I've tried to stay on top of where it's being spent and try to reallocate to where it may be better spent. And I just wouldn't rule out that if we could spend it in a way that would help the services being provided, it may be available.
Going back to the family court. That's not under this.
No, Corral Herring, family court and Corral Herring are not.
I was just thinking Roger might like some assistance with some of that money.
Well, I mean,
You
they're,
can't use it for me,
No, I
just
know.
like you can't use it for the VA.
For family.
Corral Herring's kind of its own isolated item. There are other, again, we applied for the family court grant, we weren't approved, but we continue to apply for these grants, and I think ultimately we will land in the approved category. And they try to make money available through other funding streams other than Corral Herring. So it is possible that there will be funding available for whatever cost increases there are with respect to public defense. But to Roger's point, just like with Corral Herring, there won't be funding available for the other side. Unless there is some other setting, but not in the public defense. It's really just isolated with funding. And as he's saying, there will be increased costs in other departments. But, it's a new rule at this point. So, and again, we were just discussing earlier, if people aren't aware of it, they can't take advantage of it. But I know they'll be pushing implementation of this rule in one way or another. They just haven't been clear on that yet. Right.
Right. Yeah, well, as history usually shows, what happens is they fund it 100%. And then as the state gets in trouble, they'll cut it to 90, 80, 70, and they'll end up being ours. Oh, they do. Just so everybody's aware. It will be on our dime eventually. Whether it's 2 years, 5 years, or 10. And this way they control what's in it and unfunded mandates, which he always reminds us.
Yep. They're taking a place.
Any other questions for both? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sheriff. Sure.
You guys need the white one.
He didn't wear his belt.
For the guns, right?
That's only if he wears his gun. That's only if he wears his gun belt.
So,
He put him back in the other chair.
Yeah, I can wear a gun belt this one, it's not.
You need the smart chair. Move on.
Only for public, only for, not public defense, only for self-defense.
I just have one thing. We applied for a grant with committee approval in May for explosive detection canine grant. It's 100% funded, $22,067. We were awarded that grant, so I would like to request approval to accept the grant and ask for a budget amendment.
Motion by Dana, second by, we'll get that.
Second to finance.
Move to finance.
Second.
Discussion. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, Sheriff, that I've not up on this. What does the $20,067, what do you get to do with that money?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Yeah. So training, equipment.
You train one of your existing dogs?
We have we have 4 dogs, two that are bomb trained. So explosive training, so they can find handguns, they can find ammunition, not just bombs. So it's not like, so they get used way more often, obviously, to find handguns or ammunition or things like that. But it covers their training, overtime for the handlers for their training, obviously.
How about meals when he's in training?
I'm sorry,
Meals when he's in training?
the dog or the
Yeah,
handler?
the dog.
The dogs, actually, the handlers have found a source that has given them dog food for all the dogs for a year.
Nice.
So they took a truck to Syracuse, I think, and brought back a truckload of dog food, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is
Is
this
it continual, do they continually have to be trained, or once they're trained, they don't have it?
No, they have a pretty rigorous standards as far as the certification for explosives and, well, drugs are different now. But marijuana's not in the mix, but that's why there's more money for this, I think.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Sheriff Martin, thank you.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do- Oh, we didn't vote. My apologies. Process error. No, you're good, sir.
Take a chance, Jeff, run. Take care.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Process foul. Thank you very much for that. What I'd like to do is, got ahead of myself. I'd like to hold code enforcement and instead bring up emergency services, public safety first, please. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, first thing on the agenda is the backfill of communications officer positions. So currently, we have the ability to backfill a per diem communications officer position, provided we have an open position existing. With the full timers during COVID, we had the same ability to be able to do that without having to come to committee for approval. We're asking if we can get that approval as a blanket. So if we have an existing open full-time communications officer position, conferring with the personnel officer, are we able to just automatically fill that, provided the position's funded and it exists in our staffing pattern and it's vacant?
I would like to add one thing to that. The sheriff's office currently has that permission to go forward with those backfills without going to committee because of the nature of the positions and 24/7 operation. So public safety, I would think, kind of falls into that same category.
So, say, Dana, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, number two, the update on the domestic terrorism plan and grant. I sent you all an email last night, so we still have not received our MWBE approval from the state to move forward with a waiver with the vendor that we had selected previously to work on our domestic terrorism prevention plan grant with us. So we have been working hand in hand with Warren County, with Under Sheriff Winchell, Sheriff Murphy, and some other partners around the state to develop a base plan that we can use and build upon for the future. I sent a copy of that plan out to all of you last night. This is to the state by 12/31, so we were very mindful of that deadline and not letting that pass or putting us up against the wall. So we do have something to work with moving forward. And the plan, like I said, very base. It gives us the ability to expand and grow as we develop our domestic terrorism prevention programs that we're looking at here at the county and working with Warren County hand in hand. So we need approval to accept the plan as a base plan to move forward to the board so we can submit it to the state by 12.
Motion. Thank you, sir. Second, Dana. Anyone second that yet? Second by Sue. Thank you. Discussion. Dana.
So we're hiring a consultant to come up with a plan, but we have to approve the plan by December 31st.
Correct.
How are we going to do that?
there's a lot to this. I mean, I guess last night I didn't even read it, so I can't even approve this thing, but I mean, because as you know, I'm very leery about this thing. This is very politically driven, the fact that it's called domestic terrorism. What if there's an international terrorist? Does the sheriff have a plan for that? You fight this thing. I wear this MAGA hat. This is aimed at me. Maybe I have some firearms. You know, your governor is targeting all conservatives. That's our like the first. Huh? Well, you and Sue's got all of our. So I'm very skeptical about the fact that we are going to hire a consultant. I don't even know what he's going to say yet. In almost a month. And approve that. That's crazy. This is being rushed through. I wouldn't say jammed down our throats, but this is being rushed.
So the intent here is to create a framework. That's all this is, an outline. The general scheme. There's no solid details to this. So we want to approve the concept, which is our 8-page and 10-page document. Subsequently to be developed in detail by a contract. That's whether that happens, that may not happen before December 31st. This will become, correct me if I'm wrong, this will become the plan that we approve, but we don't have any details behind it until we get somebody in here to develop.
Correct. And I can assure you, there's nothing inflammatory in there. I mean, I would encourage you to read it. There is nothing inflammatory in there. There's no regulation in there relative to your hash guns, anything to the like. Basically, it gives us that basic framework we need to meet the requirements of the state-based plan by 12/31. From there,
when did you compile it?
We've been working on it with Warren County all along. We've been working on it with
This
a
was
couple of
emailed
other
to us
counties.
last night.
And we just finished it and reviewed it yesterday. Obviously, we had hoped that we would have our MWB waiver and be working with a contractor by now, but obviously we had to work on that ourselves so we can meet the deadline of the state.
What we're trying to achieve is getting this in front of the full board as be adopted as our start point. And the intent is to get caught up with the state with its grant funding to further develop this. All this does is meet the minimum, the very minimum set forth by the record, the state law.
This is basically generic with data. That's all it is. It's not really the plan. It's what you need to do minimally meet the 12/31 deadline.
Correct.
No, but we also have to have the plan from the consultant by 12/31,
No, we don't.
not just this.
No.
No,
He's
we
saying
don't.
we're going to submit this by 12/31, so we
I misunderstood.
meet the deadline.
This is a, we used to call them slug stopper. This is a, this just keeps us out of trouble with the state saying we have a plan, but it's not really the ideal plan.
Okay, I like that. In fact, I wouldn't bother hiring, so let's send this in and be done with it. However, I did read it. And I had a little concern on appendix D, page 8. Which it doesn't mention anything at all about the board of supervisors. Seems like on the stakeholders, the board of supervisors is the stakeholders. Unless I'm missing something.
So specific and more so, I guess this is in terms of stakeholder member agencies that are going to participate in the threat advisory coordination team. So that is when an incident is flagged by the police and they handle the emergent part of it that they've already handled. They would be referring that case to that group of people to review. So mental health professionals from all of those agencies that you see listed would review that case. Obviously, there'll be confidentiality agreements that have to follow and all that sort of thing. So basically, the idea is to identify if someone is a concern, that those agencies all have their wealth of knowledge that they can say, hey, if the sheriff's office has dealt with this person 5 times and they're kind of at the end of what they can do legally, Roger says, hey, I may have a case with that person. I may be able to pick up the ball and do a little bit more. There's no regulation on the coordination group, but it's relative to more of what they have involvement with, I guess, the person in general, for the case that's been forwarded to the team. And certainly we can add the board of supervisors as a representative.
It just seems like there ought to be a representative there.
If you feel that.
If you guys don't think so.
that's fine. It's just my 2 cents for having read it.
Maybe the chairman and vice chairman.
I was thinking the chairman. of the Republic.
Funny.
Okay.
That's up to y'all.
But I just think it ought to say, representative. And I bet Warren County would say the same, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents. Do what you want with it.
Tim, if the word domestic were removed from this document everywhere, it was terrorist. I don't, if something, terrorist kills me, I don't put terrorist domestic or international. Okay. Would that then be out of how this has to conform? If the word domestic were removed?
I believe the word domestic is clearly in the executive order 18.
That proves my point.
But if it's gonna be a non-domestic / international terrorist, these stakeholders have nothing to do with it. I mean, the CIA and the FBI.
No, but we're still gonna respond the same way.
Really? And that's crazy.
Domestic just means happening on these.
No, the largest terrorism in this country is by international terrorists here on a student visa from Saudi Arabia. This only talks about domestic people.
That's what you're stating is that the largest terrorist threat in the
9/11.
United States. We're talking about right now. Right now, you think it's more international than domestic?
I don't know. You don't know what you don't know, but this only addressed the domestic terrorism. Why are we addressing all terrorists?
We don't disagree with that. The point I think of this was to recognize the fact that we needed a lot more cooperation, to share information ahead of time, to try to be proactive as opposed to reactive. That's what some of this is.
I think we were led down a path. It's like a frog in a pot of water. You slowly turn up the heat, the frog won't jump out, it slowly gets used to it. This is the first thing in many, many steps. Before you know it, our rights and liberties agree.
Dana Hogan, so we haven't made.
To accept this draft.
To accept this draft. To accept this draft, take it to the Board of Supervisors for approval, to adopt it as the Washington County.
In order to submit it by 12/31.
Correct. To be the Washington County Domestic Terrorism Prevention Plan that we put on the books. And then we can modify it. I mean, it's not a one and done thing. This is a living document. We will implement, if we get the grant money, we can use that grant money to put professionals on this to flush out the details. Or we can decide, nah, we're good with this framework, keep it as broad and general as we need it. And then over time, if we find we need to adjust this, we will. Brian, yes, sir.
2 questions. First one's very technical. I can't read the letter or the word under the D in draft.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask that question.
A guide to something.
Something threat.
I think it just says the threat assessment and management team.
Guide to.
Guide to what? What's the
The
word?
threat assessment and management team.
I couldn't figure out what it says under before threat. So
Yeah.
whatever. And the second question was, if we were to go to a consultant, is that already funded or is that something we have to pay for?
So yeah, we were already approved to go to a consultant under the piggyback RFP with Warren County. The problem is this grant funding has an MWBE requirement from the state, which many of the grant funds don't. So we had to get an MWBE waiver because the
And you
state
didn't
didn't
get
feel it
that?
met the threshold. We have not got that
And
yet.
so if we don't get that, I'm with Bob, let's just put it the way it is. If they don't want to grant us that, then we're good.
Yes, sir.
And Tim, this is a question for you, that the guide to whatever that is, assessment management team, is the management team the stakeholders?
So the
Or is
management
that a
team,
different,
so if you look specifically
I'm trying to sort through that.
on page, sorry about that.
3 and 4.
Yeah, 3 and 4 are going to be the specific parts. Those are the primary agencies on the Washington County part that are going to participate in the majority of the team. So the stakeholders, and like Supervisor Hankey said, we can add the Board of Supervisors to that. The primary participants are the agencies that are going to be members of the team or have representation at the team level are listed on 3 and 4. Obviously, the mental health organization, so Rob York and his group, Glens Falls Hospital, Hudson Headwaters, all because they have access to information and people. Right? They are a giant resource in our community in the healthcare side and the mental health side that obviously we may need access to. As we talk about probation, alternative sentencing, same thing. That we want to put all the minds in one room so something doesn't get mixed.
No, I'm not in any
But yes,
way
reinforce.
having an issue with any of that, but if this is our plan, all I'm saying is you've listed or stated it's the management team, and it should be identified. This is our management team.
That would be the threat assessment coordination team.
Is there any way if you would write that in there somewhere so that people would see it immediately? That who the management team is?
Sure.
I mean,
I'll write it right next to primary departments and agencies participating in the team.
Whatever.
All right.
Thank you.
Is it, you've stated it both ways now, is it and management team or is that and coordination?
Threat assessment coordination team.
So would you change that on the front? My question.
Sure.
So it's support, I think it should all say,
Should
it should
all
be the
come
same
together.
everywhere.
Wouldn't that be somewhat mutable under your ICS system? Whatever you call it now, depending on what the nature of the threat was, the nature of the area was and everything. I mean, there's, you know, if it was happening on top of, I don't know, French Mountain, something would be, you know, forest
Yes.
rangers might have a higher impact, higher, you know, seat on the ICS team. If it was happening in, you know, the town of Argyle, you know, he was the highway superintendent. Yeah, that's kind of a mutable thing depending on where it is, and what it is, because you've all had your ICS training, at least level 6. Supervisors, so you should all know that. Of course. It's mandatory. It's online.
Okay.
I'm sure this is very well written because Tim wrote it. He does excellent work. But I can't vote for this. I haven't read it. And even if I did read it, I'd probably vote no, so I'm gonna be consistent.
But you can read it between now and the board meeting, when we really vote.
So that D looks like it's.
Thank
So
you
we
for
have-
your effort, Tim. Appreciate it.
I think that's pretty well known, given the time frame and the fact it's got 2 counties.
By Mr.
Good job.
Fresh. Any other discussion? So we do have some comments that we can take, the consistency with the language, appreciate that in the front, flowing through, being concise, using the same term throughout.
And uncover that one word.
So I'll make these updates and I will resend this out this afternoon with those couple of updates.
Yep.
And again, a huge thank you to Warren County, who did a lot of work on this as well, and collaboration with Albany County.
So Warren County is essentially using the same. document.
Warren counties will be very similar. I will let them know the words that you would like changed, so when they present it to their committee next week.
They'll change it back.
I mean, they may change it on their side, so the plan is separate. Washington County has a plan, Warren County's gonna have a plan. The team is what we're putting together as a joint effort.
Right.
Obviously, with the stakeholders being so close and a lot of them wearing dual hats, it was very important for us to be able to work books together.
So Bob, to your point, in the stakeholder list, just put Board of Supervisors representative, and we'll designate who that should be later on. Sam, yes, sir.
Yeah, when he submits it, the word draft is gonna be off it, so it's gonna show that word in the front, that going down as a draft. So that it takes care of Dan's issue.
Good idea.
Back over here, Brian. Oh, Dana, you had another question?
Yes, the appendix C, the acronyms. And I'm wondering, is this kind of a canned report? If we have MRAPs here, are we gonna get a grant for MRAP? That might be something I might be in favor of. But the sheriff has that old Brinks truck that is like a SWAT vehicle. But Warren County has an MRAP, I believe, or we don't. So should we have another acronym for, you know, like a SWAT truck or? Because I don't think we're ever gonna get a mind read system ambush protected vehicles.
I could certainly add a SWAT truck to that list.
Isn't there a pop truck like that?
Weren't we offered an MRAP at one point? Warren County got theirs, and the Army was giving them all away.
I do.
The appendix, we kept interchangeable, obviously, because we are going to be sharing resources of people on this with Warren County. So we didn't want to take anything out that they pertain to us in the future.
Will there be in the report, like AMRAP would also be like a law enforcement SWAT type?
It's an armored vehicle.
I don't think there's armor in the floor.
It's been used synonymous with an armored vehicle lately, so.
The other thing we did put in here, and I think it's on the bottom of page 6, is that we know that this plan is going to evolve and grow in the future. So we made sure to make it clear that any official amendments or changes to the plan prior to implementation will come back to the Board of Supervisors for full adoption. So obviously, we're not just going to be changing the plan on the fly, not having the board understanding and involved in that process.
Brian, do you have another question? Nope, I'm good. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. There you go. It's a good question. I think we still have a forum. We do. Dave out.
You and I and Daryl and Sue have. That's it.
Aye.
Aye.
Stand.
Aye. That's Rules of the board say you can't get up. And make a motion. That's supposed to be nice.
Well, it's fine there.
Very bad. Yay or nay, Dave? Yeah, hurry up.
We're talking about canceling the photo op tomorrow. Yay, nay. Sue's got.
All right, so we have any opposed? We have one opposed?
One opposed.
Motion carried. All right, so you have a task, go back and polish this up a little bit.
Be done this afternoon.
All right, put the old min wax on there and wax on, wax off.
Sure.
Move that draft word up so we can read what it says on your head.
Make it much bigger, it covers everything.
Again, this is a good start. Right there. Thank you. Anything else on the agenda?
Last was just a quick update on the future of EMS working group. So a number of the supervisors continue to participate in the working group along with the EMS agencies. We are still working to gather some data from the EMS agencies to have something to move forward with. So if you're not in contact with your EMS agency, if you could be, and just make sure that they are participating and assisting us in collecting that data from them, that we need to help shape something for the future. The last thing that I will say in reference to this last meeting was from the supervisors that attended and from us at the county level, the EMS agencies were tasked to collaborate and combine a list of 5 legislative actions that they needed to move forward with that would help the EMS system continue to progress forward, and 5 collaborative needs that these agencies would need to be sustainable for the next 5 years, continue to provide service to the community. So they are currently working on that. So it's not a list that's all over the place. We'll have some collective answers on legislative concerns and on things that they think they need to move forward for the next 5 years and provide sustainable service.
For those who have not been able to attend, the biggest thing that I think we need to achieve is what he just said, but also if we're going to make this work. Right now, everything we're talking about is a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid to a structural issue that exists throughout the state. And until the state actually does something, anything we do is still going to be a Band-Aid. But one EMS right now, why I know, because I contract with them for the town of Putnam, which is Ticonderoga EMS. They are going in front of the Ticonderoga Town Board on their December meeting, advocating for a tax district to be established. So it's already starting. So I don't know how it's going to end up, but more to follow. So it's going to behoove us to understand EMS, but that fire is right behind it. You can't. So if that gets recognized as an essential service by the state, if that's what we need to make structural changes to keep it sustainable. It won't look like it looks like today. That's the bottom line. What it ends up looking like, I have no idea. But what I do, Rick, feel is we're on the verge of a dramatic change in how we do that. Yes, sir.
Roger, does a formation of a new taxing district have to be approved by the legislature?
Well, it has to be, it goes through the same as any other kind of district. Has to go through the comptroller's approval and things like that.
So there's a single state approval or a multiple state department approval? Secretary of State.
Yeah, truthfully, I'm not, that's more a town issue, so I haven't really gone into how districts are formed, but what normally has to, what the taxing district has to be formed is you need something, you need to establish a map planning report, who's gonna be covered, what's the cost gonna be, get approved by the comptroller.
So there is state approval to some degree.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But there's, you got a fire district, which is a true taxing jurisdiction. Then like in my town, I have a fire protection district, which is quasi, it still comes out of the town budget, but it appears in the tax bill like it's a taxing jurisdiction, but it's not. So I don't know if we're gonna have a blend of these two types, depending if you're a high population, you're gonna be a EMS district as opposed to like an EMS protection district.
Well, in all likelihood, you form an EMS district, and then that district collects money and then contracts with one or more entities to provide the service. So it could still be with a squad or squads to cover that entity.
Or it could be a county, this.
Well, you would need it, so if you're gonna form a county EMS organization, that would be a completely different cost assessment, right? With county people, folks wearing county uniforms and county whatever, that would be a different cost, but it would allow you to contract, it would allow the county to contract with various people, or towns, because some towns have formed their own EMS districts as well.
Right.
Fire district.
So a couple things to remember was the state has caused all this, that's number one. They moved all the training, so they basically have abolished volunteerism in the fire, in the EMS areas by making more training than you have hours available if you have any other job at all. That's kind of how we got you. And it happened in the North Country first, and they did create the district, and that's who you get involved in. So the states pushed this all on, so they're not really helping us in any way. And then when we get all done full circle, just the way as David just said about you have your fire district, and it's a separate tax, but it still comes under your cap. This will work the same way. So wherever the money comes from, you don't have any more money than you ever had. It's just going in a different pot that you have to take care of. So it'll be very interesting how that all works through. Because they don't give you extra money because of the cap. So more than likely, when we do this, we will be overriding the cap.
But if it's like a fire district, it wouldn't be because it's its own taxing.
No, they don't have their own cap. It's under your town cap.
No, fire district.
Right, so they take it away from you if you're involved in it.
No.
That's the way I read the cap law. That's the way I read the cap law. Anytime you provide something new, you take from wherever it was to form the other one.
Hopefully get your clarification.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting.
That's not gonna change the outcome of today.
It won't change the outcome. It's just gonna change on how it's funded and how you override to get there.
The reason I asked was the previous governor had a big deal about the number of taxing districts in New York State, are too many. So you're trying to shrink it. You're going where it's actually going to grow. But of course, he's not with us anymore. Who's the governor was? So somebody's governor did it, but it's different.
Well, the intent,
Mine wouldn't have done that.
so the intent of getting these recommendations together from the group and presenting them through the safety committee, through the board of supervisors to engage with Albany and say, look, here's our recommendation. So the idea is that this is a advocate, separate and distinct. This is the Washington County Board of Supervisors saying, here's our recommendations for change. If we want to sustain EMS or make EMS viable to the future. So it's going to take a little bit of effort on all of us to kind of ask these great questions, understand the pitfalls of these recommendations, and maybe we send the recommendations back to the group that we form and say, we got some further questions, but hopefully you're available, you can attend the meetings and you can ask those questions as we develop them, so that we don't have to spend time kind of going back through. We're asking some hard questions already, but there's only a couple of us that attend meetings, and I can't, you have great perspective with towns and challenges depending on your geographic area. And it would be helpful if we get that feedback. Right, for Dave, I'm sorry.
So I've been to most of the meetings, all the meetings, I think. And I think the biggest thing is there are 8 squads in Washington County, right? All have the same problems. One person hires one for $20 an hour. Next one hires them Zach and do it for $22 an hour. So it just rotates through and people rotate, not only in Washington County, but other counties. So the real challenge with them is they all have the same issues. They all have the same needs. They need to find a way to work closer together to accomplish some of these goals. Some of it will probably have to come from the county, but most of it's going to have to start with them to want to sit together and work together to accomplish common goals. We can't be, well, this is my domain and this is your domain. It comes across in the meeting where there's actually 2 squads that sit there and argue back and forth about who gets what. And, they need to work close together.
Yes.
My takeaway from it is, first of all, they're all in the room. If they had told me they would all be in the room 15 years ago, I would be amazed. So then we got them all there, and they're providing the data. The lobbying, there's some real healthcare things that come up that is detrimental to, first of all, rural healthcare and to the volunteer agencies. And 2 days after that meeting, there was an article in the Times for the capital region was going and sitting in ambulance with their patient for 6 hours. And take it into the ERs in the capital region. So if there are volunteers, we have side jobs, they've just spent, could be 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, and then they have 1 patient. And that's what we're trying to do. It just isn't, it's an open healthcare. The other thing is they go and they provide service. They're all, they have all these credits, they know what they're doing. We're very lucky we have them. If they go and they provide care to someone and they don't provide transport, they don't get paid, which is amazing to me because the amount of hours they spend in getting trained so they can provide a service is looked at as not, doesn't have value. So these are some of the things that the loopholes that need to fix. And hope that we can attend to some of those so that they have the time and money to do what they're what we need it. Because Washington County is kind of a rural healthcare desert. We're designated that way. So we better protect what we have. And make what we do. Do it. So get a lot of credit to what's coming out of this. I know it feels like it's controversial, but sometimes we change. You have to have those hard discussions. We're happy.
So what I've said in those meetings is there's been a lot of advocacy for change in this area, but it's come from people directly related to the operation. And so the perception is that they're benefiting from the change. You got to take that advocacy and bring it up a level. Otherwise, I don't think it's going to go.
I think the best way to say it, they're starting to talk. They need to start to work together and cooperate and share information back and forth. This is where they're not at this point.
Yeah. They're still in the competitive mode. They're competing for that transport.
Yeah, but that's politics in general, folks. It's just like when we just talked earlier about Hurrell Herring and all those things. Who did they shut out of the room? The county attorneys. You know, I mean, the people that you should have had at the table, they never get that. At least here we have the right people at the table, but it's just getting all on the same page to have that discussion to want to be bigger than just themselves. That's where we're at.
And those discussions are happening. I mean, obviously, we've come a long way since the first meeting. The hardest part is getting everybody to continue to come back to the rest of the meetings. I mean, that's why I asked that you please reach out to your squad and just make sure that they are participating. Because if we don't have everyone at the table, we have, 10 or 12 of the towns represented, not everybody there. And obviously, it benefits everybody to be at those tables and have those discussions.
So far, are you building trust or losing trust? I guess that's the discussion. I'm not involved,
Absolutely. I think they're definitely building trust amongst each other.
because that's what's important, is that you're getting more trusting instead of less trusting, the more you want.
But some of the conversations are difficult. I mean, obviously, we have Dr. Rose on the line, who's very helpful and participates in discussion. The leader of the Fort Drum Regional Health Organization that's now overseeing the EMS program agency in the area. Bruce, obviously, we have a lot of people there that we're working to get everyone. So this list is kind of the first effort at put your ideas and needs together in one place and keep it relatively concise. So we can turn around and they can bring that to you and give you a basic presentation of here's the 5 legislative needs that we need to happen at the state level. So we can turn and go to our senators and assemblymen. And here are the 5 things that the agencies collectively need to be able to be sustainable for the next 5 years locally, both which are drastically different lists.
I think once you have the list and we're able to get those lists, I think the next question is going to be what involvement does the county want to have in assisting either of these agencies collectively or not collectively. Right now, it's a long process, and it seems like we're hearing some of their needs. They're not all on the same page, but we're basically just listening right now, and we're not sure how we're able to help them. So I think at some point, the county or the supervisors may have to decide what resources we want to lend their way.
Right. And if it's a, resolution that we send these recommendations forward to the state, I don't know, I guess I put on my coat and tie and go down to Albany and go, here we go. But at least we can brief, I think it's, Matt Simpson, Dan Stett, who have both recognized that there's an issue here, give them something that's meaningful to take forward to the assembly or the Senate floor. So at least have that conversation, because I can't believe just old Washington County's alone. It's got to be more than that.
Well, within the region now, you've got some big people, because it's not just one person in the county now, you've got 3 or 4 represented everywhere. So you got a lot more clout, or should have at the state level by being that diverse.
One of the interesting things I found out in discussions last time we had a meeting was Washington County is really the only one that has separate groups. There's more of a western side of the state. They fall under the fire department. And other areas, they are a mix of city or town. But we are unique to have 8 that are all volunteers.
We are one of 3, I think, in the state that doesn't have a commercial agency, a municipal run agency, or a fire department. Everybody here is a private organization.
Yes, sir.
Sitting here listening, but you got to realize, guys, how many counties there are. You have to realize Long Island, 5 boroughs, okay, all entered into the state of New York. These legislatures that come from all over. I've preached this for how many years have I been coordinator or whatever. Everything's going to come out of Albany eventually, all right? But who else? Every county's in the same position. Every state in this union is in the same position. There are no people. I went on the website yesterday, on the EMS website. There's a thing on if you want to be an EMT, what you need. How many people go on the thing? How many people? You got to realize people don't stay in EMS, guys. Even if you're a paramedic, man, you're a rarity to save your whole life. I'm just saying, this is going to be a long process here. This isn't just 8 squads that can't get along. They never have gotten along the whole time I've been here. So why would they start now with one? The thing is, guys, there's no people. There's no people. So this is gonna be the real problem. But you've heard me, and I'll continue to say it every meeting we have, because the state of New York has got to come into this, but Long Island, all under fire service down there. So, Sydney, good luck.
Thank you, sir. All right, so that's just an update to us. Wanted to make sure that everybody knew where we were with that. Thank you. Now for the conversation with code enforcement. Come on up, sir. Where'd you go?
Got that chair warmed up for you.
There's a reason why, there's a reason why we put you last.
I think that was the
Huh?
Thanks for a short discussion.
Well, I have no idea. It all depends on how things are going.
I meant the EMS.
If it was easy, we'd all be home.
It's like,
Anyone else need this one? I'll take it. Sure, why not?
Sir?
So the main, let's go to the bottom thing, the bottom one there, coverage for Simsbury call outs. Let's tackle that one first, please. All right.
Is there any actions?
Oh, yes. Do we have any? No extra forms.
Oh, thank you, Debbie.
Cover that one. Okay, I had some questions on it, and then Dan was here last time. He was in the legal side of it, so we can go ahead and start on that. All right. Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay. Couple of questions if we were to cover Kingsbury. We could figure out who's going to continue through, just thoughts that I had on the process of it. Who would continue it through? I would assume we'd go to Kingsbury, we'd go out, do the initial visit, and then
Monday morning.
a year or two, our crew would take it up. Okay, all right.
Or the village, I've asked the village. if they're interested.
Okay, all right. And then the other question that I had was, like, say we go in and close a building, and it's not necessarily something that the town or the village would have done in that particular situation. How would that be handled?
They have the legal ability to reopen their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that.
So you just
Just
say,
say,
all right.
case, they would, you know, I would hope they would be having a discussion. To make sure everybody's in agreement. So by sort of the closing of the building in place, and if they were gonna let it, make sure everybody's on the same page. Of why they're-
Yeah,
I think we work pretty well right now with our.
I was just gonna say, we've had no problem whatsoever. We're gonna do. Those were the two concerns, questions that I had.
All right, so we're good with that topic. Thank you for that.
Well, Dan had mentioned something last time that he was gonna see the legal ramifications if it was a all or nothing. So it's a jurisdiction. Yeah. Jurisdiction.
Yeah, I don't.
So I will admit I wasn't here the last time, so I just want to clarify, so the weekend coverage is going to be every single weekend or only in cases where your guy's not?
Every single weekend.
Every single weekend, because we have currently resolutions that authorize coverage for emergencies. Somebody gets sick, you know, lost his vacant or whatever. We have them for vacancies in office, but we don't have anything for every single week. So we'd have to do a new resolution to authorize that kind of agreement, because that's not covered by what we currently have. We obviously contemplate doing that, several other occasions filling in, but not on a permanent basis. So that was part of the resolution agreement itself. Again, when you called out, on it, you have a sense of what's going on.
I think it's rare. So my understanding is very rare.
So wouldn't that be-
Fire incidents and.
So wouldn't that be covered or possibly be covered on an emergency basis anyway, because you're not?
I don't know. So here's what I'd like to propose, if you guys are open to this idea, is that if the committee is open for the idea, I will have Jeff reach out to you, Roger. Try to square all those details.
Okay, because we have intermunicipal agreements with other towns for those other two situations.
Yeah.
So it would seem to me that just like if your guy was out of town at a wedding or something and there was a fire, you would call us. So if you have a vacancy on the weekends for whatever reason, it would still be an emergency situation. It wouldn't be, well, I'm gonna go over and inspect this house just because I need to inspect this house. There would be a triggering event.
Yeah, so I'd like to find out what we find as a triggering event. Again, if it's okay with it, sure, Jeff and Todd working together, try to figure out. Let's get two lawyers together. What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
Awesome. So do we need a resolution for that? Or?
Not if we see it underneath the emergency code enforcement provisions. We don't, because we already have blanket authorization to sign them. So if it falls underneath that, I guess that's my point. If it falls underneath that, then we're fine.
Yes.
The one thing that I don't know if it's something we need to discuss now, but there will surely be some effects to payroll that I'm sure, we don't have extra money in the point funds, but if it's few and far between, it's probably not a large amount, but so, remember.
And also to come to Ryan's point, this is not scheduled calls, this is emergency, to call up a fire department or someone else. Is that correct, Peter? These are not scheduled events, these are all emergencies, called up by fire squad or rescue.
Yeah.
So
So that's why I think it falls under. So the language we have here is when requested by property authority, the county may agree to provide the services of the code enforcement officer. To the extent necessary during a call out due to exigent circumstances to provide inspections of buildings when the municipality's code enforcement officer is unavailable.
The thing is, attorney wants to define them a little better. Let's define them a little better and make everybody happy. Move on. Listen, if I hire your grandma on a Saturday night, you're gonna pay time and a half for his daddy home to grandma, so I must do the same thing for. I don't think it's gonna be that big effect budget wise.
And for the one or two that happen in the next 3 years.
Well, what you don't want to say is, so have your code enforcement, the Kingsbury guy going, yeah, I can do an inspection on Saturday for you, and then call up John and go, guess what, you're scheduled for an inspection. That was the question I had.
Right.
But if it's, we're all doing, right, it'd be exigent circumstances, what, my guy's not available, so I need somebody to cover. There's an emergency that we've already signed agreements with other towns to do that when that comes up. So if that's the case and you don't have coverage for whatever reason, you take over and do it. And then it transfers back the next time. And if there are fees involved, like in the temporary coverage, there might be fees, basically building permits and stuff. If you have a vacancy in the office, we keep the fees, but in this case, it wouldn't be any fees. We'd just be going out, taking a look, doing a snapshot. Yeah, I have to.
My question on that, those agreements, those are between, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one thing. Those are between the county and the towns or villages that have given code enforcement requirement or enforcing code requirements to the county level. Right?
No, they're between the towns that haven't. So in other words, if Fort Ann has its own code enforcement guy and that guy is sick, we've signed an agreement that we'll fill in for him until they get where he dies in office and they can't get him, this person's appointed or something. Or he's away at a wedding and there's a big fire in Fort Ann and we need to send somebody. But that's exactly what those cover. In other words, we're the second call, I guess.
We have that now, right?
Yes, you do.
With every town?
With your town, we have one.
Good.
I think we have them almost with every county. We did one with Fort Edward for a while. They were a little, I think the village, they were a little goofy about, they had some vacancies and things like that. I think we did it with Hudson Falls. They had some vacancies in there. It made sense that we had a bigger staff who could cover those problems. So it sounded, and Dan wasn't aware that all those things were out there when he was here. So that's why I kind of wanted to get a sense from you of what exactly we were talking about. It may fit under one of those things we've already authorized.
That's probably been on the books for years.
Yeah, 2009.
Sounds good, we got to pass.
Yeah, so it should be, 2009 was the emergency one, so. And the other one was before that, so we should be able to make that happen without much.
Okay. Yep, go ahead. Quick follow-up. Under those agreements, do we have the authority to go into one of those places and like close a building down? If there's
You have the authority to be a code enforcement officer when they're asked, when you're asked to be a code enforcement.
What happens in the scenario where something happens on a Sunday? The county is called out. But then before the case being handed to the town for Monday through Friday, or once it's your case, it's your case.
No, it's handed back, for the emergency situation, it's handed back once we've completed whatever the emergency requires. If in fact it's a case where the code enforcement, there's a vacancy in the code enforcement, it's gonna take them a month to complete appointing somebody, then we start charging the fees, we keep the fees, basically keep the file until it's transferred over, until the file at some logical point is transferred over. This looks like it's going to be more like a one-off kind of deal, where it's a discrete transaction and then done.
Right. So in an emergency situation, as John just suggested, like say they go in Saturday night, late, fire, whatever, shut the thing down, you can't live here, whatever. Monday morning, they take it over, they come and say, oh, because they're back in jurisdiction at that point, they've taken it over and whenever they decide. Doesn't matter what we decided, we're out of the chain now, right back.
Perfect. Any other comments, questions? Dana, we got everything lined up for you. So next meeting, we should be all set. Does it have to come back in front of
If
the
anything,
meeting?
not unless there's a significant desire by the town to significantly change what we've already authorized. I don't see why it would have to come back. It's already like the authorization to sign those agreements. So,
Thank you. Good with that?
This one goes as fast.
Yeah, it will be. All right, so moving on to the next topic, exemption form. There's been some discussion about if we do this, what should the form look like? So the form first.
All right, so I sent out an email asking for any input that you might have on this form. The one that I just sent around there, the items in red, and then if you look at the back, it's the corresponding points to it. Letter A there. I mentioned putting in the tax map numbers. That's good. Letter B. Question came up, should we even reference a telephone number? This is going to be primarily for who we think that it is. They generally don't have phones. But they generally also give us contact numbers for like a neighbor or somebody who kind of acts in that facility over their group. So,
It's on that phone.
yes.
Well, they don't charge them on the car.
Yeah. I think on the dwelling or structure owner information, a lot of times. Postal address. A lot of your areas have a, Route 30 town year, which they, some have a post office box.
Have one address, shouldn't we?
it'll eventually, if it's a new house, it'll have to have that.
Matt.
So maybe it's a little too fussy, but I'd like the first page, John. Under religious sect, I'm wondering if we should list the ones that we would recognize and say choose one. So that somebody doesn't put around some crazy ones and say, hey, no, I'm recognized. I'm recognized by whatever, maybe the town of whatever. We should make it Amish or something else, and they should check the box and then know what we're talking about. So it's not sort of so open-ended. Roger scowling at me.
I'm not scowling. I've said all along, I'm not in favor of doing this form.
All right, I know that. I'm just saying, if you're gonna ask for the religious sect, you may have to choose a little, too much on a computer, a little drop-down bar, pick one, fill it in, so we know what it is. Because I can see people making up crazy stuff.
I would recommend Roger was kind enough to send me the Supreme Court case, Yoder versus the state of Wisconsin. And in it, they talk about old order Amish are the ones that are protected. And I can't quite find it in here, but some Mennonites. So I would suggest that this as a, a recognized set, this should be recognized. I don't know if you want to have that in this language, but it's already recognized by the Supreme Court as old order Amish and Mennonites.
Put those two in there then.
Because that's, I think when you come back to arguing this, you're going to go back to the Supreme Court.
Exactly. So that if I'm a knucklehead and I'm putting some other section there and don't know that, now we can prevent that. From
Because in the Supreme Court case, they went back to the history and it says that, indulge me for a second, aided by a history of 3 centuries of identifiable religious sect and a long history of a successful and self-sufficient segment of American society, the Amish have demonstrated their sincerity of their religious beliefs, and goes on, and they don't want to enter the modern world. They want to insulate themselves from the modern world. And so I think I would have no problem if this is, if you wanted to say the old order Amish and Mennonites. But if some Amish use of cell phone, I don't think you should snicker and make fun of
That's just a
them.
suggestion and try to eliminate a problem in the future. Right, somebody doing something a whole lot about it.
And the Supreme Court case also kind of addresses everybody else that wants to claim things. And they go to 3 things and they talk about, you have 3 reasons. One is philosophical, personal, religious. This is strictly religious. So if you say philosophically, like I always argue, I don't want a building code, I shouldn't have to. I agree with that. But the Supreme Court case goes back to the free exercise clause, First Amendment of the Constitution, which is religion. And they only want to hold. Huh? But the public good shall not override your First Amendment in the Constitution. In that case, correct. In that case. So if you have somebody else that comes here for some other, he wants to beat the IRS, he forms his own church, that's not the argument. I think it's great. Old
Emergency medical providers, emergency service providers are going to become in our county.
Sure.
Why don't you just say religious sects as defined in Yoder?
But if it's defined, you would put it on here.
No, just as defined in Yoder, let it go. No, I don't want to pick out whether it's.
We don't care
Which
what
group of Mennonites it is. Well,
Right.
there's Mennonites is pretty wide group, wider by far than Amish.
Because there are 3 people in the order
Dan
versus
a Mennonite at one point.
3 people. One of the parties was Mennonites. Roger probably knows it off the top of his head, but I can't find it.
I would just reference Yoder. And be done with it.
The Conservative Amish Mennonite Church.
Yeah.
So it's Old Order Amish and the Conservative Amish Mennonite Church.
Yeah, well, we can discuss that in a moment. I'd like to get to the backside, the merits of whether or not it's specific or more general. Because
On the front side first. I'm not sure we can get away with the last checkbox here. But this is stuff that this is getting a lot of, we've all got nasty letters from FEMA about the flood insurance. And if we go exempting somebody that maybe want to cancel flood insurance for the town, but they're threatening. So maybe we can't get away with that last checkbox.
I'd make that one off because
Yeah.
our maps are so bad, and they tell us they're updating them and they keep changing. The Amish will be driving cars by the time that gets there. So I think that one you should just take off.
I wouldn't recommend putting that one.
All right, we can strike it. That works.
One more. Oh, my God. Stay sitting in the chair.
There we go. All right, anything on the front side? Yes, sir.
Lumber, that must be fourth one down, lumber and wood provision of the applicable edition of the uniform code. What does that mean? Because you can build with rough cut and uniform code.
You can, you have to sign off on a form.
Right, so, and how are you, if you don't inspect it, how are you gonna require wood treated for protection against decaying and rot? Most of these Amish will saw with locust, and I've saw a lot with locust. That's better than pressure treated. So I'm just wondering if that is necessary to be in there. Throwing it out.
Well, are they naturally treated? I don't know.
What's the exemption for that?
Yeah, the
No,
exemption
but it
is,
says like other than.
no, exemptions for lumber and wood provisions that's applicable addition, in case they use something that's not applicable, you check that out.
But you're not inspecting it, so why would you put it in? You are allowed to inspect the lumber, then is what you're saying. Is that the point you're making?
No, the
No,
exemption is so you
exemption,
don't,
so you don't have to.
so you can't.
But
These
you don't know.
exemptions.
You're exempted from the
You're
lumber.
exempted from.
And it says other than.
Okay, I'm looking at, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
you're looking
thinking
at
backwards.
backwards. Yeah.
I apologize.
But I don't think you have to have pressure treated if you have locust, but it should say,
Yeah, I can change the wording on that, or naturally resistant,
Or-
that is how it is.
There you go.
or requiring wood resistant to protection.
So modify that.
They use all their
As per
own.
code. I'll write it down. Okay. Anything else on the front side? Go to the back side.
Well, depending on what we decided on the first one.
That's where I'm going.
That religious sect line at the bottom doesn't need to be there. You just have two check marks.
No, it should be the applicant's member of a recognized religious sect as defined in the order. This just nails this down, so we're not.
As defined in Yoder, but then you can get rid of that line. You don't need to know what your religious sect is, do you? Or do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanna-
have to say on.
Well, I thought we were doing a checkbox. I didn't know we were doing a
No,
line.
I'm just trying to tie it down a little tighter, make sure that there's no.
You gotta take it down, Tori, now we can take mine right.
As defined in Supreme
That'll go on top then.
Yonder and 19.
Religious sections mentioned that as the top, right after the title. Get rid
Why
of the
don't,
line.
in the checkbox, you say, which religious sect are you, Old Order Amish or conservative Amish Mennonite? Those are your two choices. Not Dana Hogan's Church of. Okay?
This is about the owner, not that thing. That's a little different. This is slightly different, right?
No, because it would be, as we get on the back part of it, you'll see, it's basically who's gonna be living
But because,
Look, you gotta realize, this is for our citizens. We need to keep it a little simple, not make it so complicated that they have to then go to Yoder and stuff. So why don't you just have two checkboxes? Which one are you, Old Order Amish or Mennonite? And if you're not any one of those, guess what? Don't fill the
I'm
form out.
for that. But I just want to add Yoder on the one.
We'll go with the checkbox for now.
Okay.
Checkbox on the bottom. Yep. It is old order on.
If you want to put this spell, ask for Yoder.
You can't make up the name here, one or the
You
other.
can put a footnote on the bottom, ask for Yoder, Wisconsin versus Yoder. 1971.
So it was conservative, though,
They
right?
make your argument in here and then they prove your argument.
Dana, just that, if you want the word conservative Mennonite, or just.
Well, that's what it says in the order, is conservative, whatever, a conservative Amish Mennonite church.
Conservative Amish?
Yes.
So they're checking it and attesting to the fact that they're part of that.
And then the
You're
other
never
one
gonna
is,
check it.
because they have to be members, it says right here, they have to be members of the Old Order Amish, and that's in capitals, I guess it's the title.
Yeah.
Old Order Amish religion and the conservative Amish Mennonite church.
And
Are we gonna?
There's two.
approve
Or
Two.
either or.
either or.
ID cards?
How do you prove it? No, you don't.
It's a voter card, you know.
You don't. They use the test because they are. It could be lying.
All right, so on the back side then.
Yeah.
Okay.
You better have your.
Are we on to the backside or are we on the front?
On front
On
page,
the back.
All right,
just so I understand what you're doing. If John hands that to somebody who's got black and suspenders and long beard and white shirt, and they check that box, and he says, I don't believe you're Amish. What's the next step? Does he have the authority to say, I want to see your card, membership card, or do you need a certificate?
No.
What do you do?
He's attesting that he's part of that. John's not gonna.
So in other words, I could do that.
You could.
Okay.
And if you were a liar, then you'd be liable for it.
We'd arrest you.
they're gonna sign it.
That's so, okay, that's interesting.
If he can't show you the horse and buggy, it's old.
No.
All right, so,
Well,
all right,
I check boxes all the
we're going to the backside.
Yay.
We're going to the backside.
We're already the dark side.
I was just gonna say that there, if we maintain like they have now, the for notary public use only, if they're gonna have it notarized, they're swearing to the fact that that's what they are here.
Yeah, oh, I know it, I know it.
So,
But in my heart, I'm an Amish. I'm old order Amish in my heart.
Okay,
And if you could look in there and figure that one out.
How many-
Facebook anyway.
I thought he was one.
Notary only test that is you signing, not the validity of the
backside.
document.
Like, I think one of our.
Keep it simple.
Sign that. To deal with something like an ad hoc.
It's gonna be if that's what's written there, absolutely. This is a wide open forum, so. All right, so add penalty for. It goes down. Yeah. So penalty of perjury clause before signature. All right, so that point. Then he added those C. Somebody recommended putting both of those together in one. But if we're going to be doing it where it's old order Amish or conservative Amish men in the church, can we just drop those? Sure.
Yeah.
No, why?
I would just take out the first three words, the religious sect, and the last one, and start with which at the end of the next one. So which has established tenets or teachings and move right on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just make it one line.
So the religious sect.
The religious sect can just be taken out of the second line and put the word which. So it says which has established tenets or teaching.
Got
So it's one sentence.
I still could attest.
I think you say I'm in.
No, that's okay.
We'll be right back when you started.
Number 5. What's on number 5? Somebody had brought up, if we could put something in the deed. We're not gonna define what that means. So that's defined for us. So once we do that, it's defined in that. But the question came up, what if somebody buys it who is not a member? What do we do with this? Who's responsible for bringing it up to code? How do we track that? I spoke with Stephanie. She said that we could. She believes there's a couple different options. To go through Roger's office on this one. But she believes that we could put something into the deed, required to be put in the deed, that there was no certificate of occupancy issued, and that they either have to sign off on this if it applies, or between the buyer and the seller.
Buyer, if you're old order Amish and you don't even want to touch smoke detectors and pull wires from the house, why wouldn't it be the buyer, who we assume is not Amish, do that? I think if you're gonna have the seller do it, right back into this, they don't want to do this, right?
So but you still want it on the deed.
What you do is file something with the county clerk, so it will be on record, and
Absolutely.
indexed against the property. You can't put it in the deed.
Right,
The
right.
deed is-
Right, it's gonna be indexed.
So you could put a notice on the land records that says, hey, just so you know, this house.
Buildings A, B, and C were constructed.
But isn't there houses sitting out there already that are like that?
Yeah, but we can go back and fix those files. We
I
have to
know,
start
but
going
it
forward.
still seems like if I was gonna buy it from the owners, obviously I don't check it.
You're-
If I wanna put it.
By sign on C.
That's what I mentioned before, we need to have,
So then it's, yeah.
I was thinking to the database in Laura's office. So that if I'm looking to buy something, I can go, hey, Laura, parcel, blah, blah, blah. Is there anything in there that's got an exemption for this? Oh, there is. Try to keep it simple so the buyer will have an idea.
Well, more with that was as part of the land records.
Right.
She keeps it private.
Can we stay away from a requirement to bring it up to code? Just say it's not, there is no CO because of an Amish waiver. Just you're letting the person know there is no CO. He can make the inference himself instead of saying, who shall bring it up to code?
So 5 comes out. Well, technically,
It gets changed.
if they're living in it without a certificate of occupancy, and built since codes were
And
around,
he would shut it
they're
down.
supposed to get it. They have to
They
have-
have to bring it up to.
Unless this.
Wouldn't title insurance check this already when you're buying something? I know there's a place for sale in my town. And we've been asked repeatedly if it's up to code, because title insurance won't cover it for the sale. So it seems like we're being redundant. Somebody is buying.
It's not, title insurance is not required.
The first thing I had to produce when I sold my house recently was the CO. The first thing they wanted, they didn't want to see anything other than the CO. Let me see the CO.
Yeah, but how does that work with a house that was built before that?
We just telling you that the first document that, and mine was built in 2001, so I have it clearly, it was all set, Kingsbury did it, all wax. That's the, nobody wanted to hear anything else about that house until they saw the CO. Nobody's willing to talk to.
I don't have one. 1835.
Yeah, mine's about the same.
Lot without walls.
1975 doesn't have to be.
But you'll know that we're talking about houses that are built 20,
Since code.
whatever, right, since code went into effect, so there would be one, and if there wasn't one.
We're skeptical on those ones, the 1900s, they know that.
Yeah.
Questions we get.
So the point on this is number 5 comes off.
Well,
Correct?
Whoa. What did you say?
we don't
Number 5.
want to make them bring it into compliance if they're gonna sell it.
Correct.
That's Dana's point.
Yeah, but the point though, if you look at D down here, if you're doing away with D at the bottom then too, as part of number 5?
The on the bottom's a question.
Yeah, there should
Yeah,
be
but you
verbiage.
eliminated 5, that's where D was.
Yeah.
So before you do it, let's flesh that one out.
Let's get the verbiage in there
The
somewhere.
language is not right. Doesn't match what we just talked
Right. But we gotta have verbiage that it's not compliant.
about. Well, at this point, we're telling the sellers, either you pay for bringing it up, or you tell the buyer, in order to get a CO, you gotta bring it up.
Right,
Buyer
there's
beware.
gotta be verbiage, there's gotta be verbiage though somewhere in that record.
It won't matter for the affidavit. This thing, it won't matter.
Right, this is an affidavit.
This is,
Well, but when they should know when they sign it, that that's gonna be part of the record.
okay.
Because I think you should know when you signed it, that that's gonna
Could you
be
say
on.
that?
That is gonna allow us to file that.
That allows us to
No.
put that with their, or whatever their record is.
All right. So
You gotta put it somewhere with the clerk.
we could change that.
There has to be some way that that's clarified.
All right, so that's what we'll do. We'll tie 5 to, if the applicant receives an exemption. Yeah, the understanding is this
They need to
property,
understand that that's gonna be.
this
on.
property
Yeah.
will be indexed with the county clerk as not having.
And that was the real property.
Wait, now, and I want to go on touching on that one, Roger. If you wanted to get title insurance and you hired, what do they call the people to do that? Do they automatically go up to real property and research all their paperwork too, or do they stay down in the county clerk's office?
They're in the county clerk's office. They
Right.
could, they go to all the places.
We want it both.
Surrogate's court.
Well, so what I'm saying is, should this be filed against that piece of property in the county clerk's office?
That's what we've been talking about.
That's what we're saying.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's what we just said.
Roger just said
that Laura could keep.
Both of them.
Oh,
We want them both
both.
places.
So you have them both, then
Both.
fine.
Absolutely.
I'm overkill mode today. You got your belts and suspenders both on.
Well, I'm.
No, I think
They're off. Yeah.
All right,
I
so,
don't need to bigger trouble. If we're gonna want to have.
all right, back over across the room, Bob,
Where is this document going to be filed?
with
Code.
And if they were looking for a CO, wouldn't they go to code to ask?
Code would keep the original.
this would go on file, I guess, with the clerk too.
But if anybody was looking for, to see if something had a CO, wouldn't they go first to code and ask?
But if they didn't, we want them to know when they go to search the deed and the title to know.
I don't,
You don't think Laura gets calls from people saying, hey, is there a CO on this parcel?
maybe,
People
but,
call all over.
well, maybe they do. Maybe they ought to be calling code to ask.
But how are they gonna know that? But they're in both places, then we're all set.
Code's busy enough.
Laura wouldn't know.
It kills, because people would kill.
Maybe we should post it on the.
She would then say, there goes in code.
Everybody,
If they get a,
Then everybody's complaining about them.
oh, okay, so that's the process. Look, don't be so timid. So what he's telling me in my ear now, because I have my hearing aid in, is if Laura gets a request, it goes through him anyway for the CO.
that's all.
All right,
But is there a downside to having a database in her office with all this listed?
She's gonna want another person.
that's the downside. Careful with the.
Well, I think everything's gotta be at the clerk's office.
Now, go ahead, one more question.
Yeah, so this complicates things immensely, and I'm probably gonna get thrown out of the room for this. I'm just thinking about in my town, we have a right to farm law. So if you buy a piece of property that's next to a farm, you send an attestation saying, I have been told about the right to farm law and all its effects, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Do we want to have the real estate agents in Washington County have that on their form to say, I've been made aware that this exists. Well, then they gotta go check it.
For a neighbor, you said don't be timid. No.
I know the laws, you guys are here.
All right.
Maybe it's a bad idea, I just don't know.
Yeah, so I wanted to have a conversation about the form. It's a good conversation, you know. Make sure we kind of understand it. But there's another aspect of this, right? Potential litigation. So in order to have a conversation about potential litigation, I think we need to go into an executive session to have that conversation. Because
So this is the last thing on the agenda today.
this is the last thing on the agenda. Yes.
Roger, I get to censor that for everyone. I'm not. Can you please communicate to the group by?
I'd rather give you legal advice in the.
Executive session.
Okay, but to, for the record, you are opposed.
I am.
Okay, thank you.
This is the way.
Thank you.
Oh, there's another way to do it.
So.
I used to that at home, I was here.
So does that mean you are offering a motion to go to executive session? Hear the answer?
I hope your wife is.
Okay.
We'll never see him again.
Second by-
Doc, you would have turned it on.
Can we impose like a 5-minute limit on this?
All those in favor of executive session? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.